When it comes to pi, I'm sure you're familiar with this little guy, and for good reason. He's basically everywhere, from geometry to physics, and even to complex analysis. But today, we're not talking about this pi, we'll be talking about his lesser known older sibling, capital Pi. Let's start from the beginning. Both pi's grew up in ancient Greece, where they made up the 16th letter of the alphabet. This is about where their similarities end though, because as they grew older, they grew further apart. As you know, lowercase pi went on to pioneer discoveries in math, engineering, and almost any situation where there's a circle involved. But capital Pi became enamored with the work that capital Sigma pursued. As a quick refresher, Sigma takes a sequence of numbers and adds them up. To read it, simply imagine all the whole numbers between the bottom and top number being plugged into this expression and added together, and that's what Sigma does. Capital Pi wanted to do something similar, that is, to create a system that made writing out operations more efficient. To do this, it mostly copied off of Sigma, but changed just enough so it wasn't plagiarism. Capital Pi takes the same idea of adding a list of numbers together and extends it to multiplication. With the same expression as before, instead of adding all the numbers, pi multiplies them together. But aside from producing a much larger number than Sigma, capital Pi also gives us cool new ways to write other expressions we're familiar with. Take this exponent for example. If you were to expand it, it would look like this series of 5 multiplications. Since we now know what capital Pi does, we can put these numbers in a list and represent the exponent like this. And there's a special connection to be made here, because we just discovered that these two are equivalent. And from this little exercise, we took something that seems complex and that you generally would see in higher level math formulas, and connected it to something most people are familiar with: simple multiplication. And other than speeding up our writing, I think that's the big benefit of learning notation like Sigma and Pi. It forces us to work with something we're initially intimidated by and prove to ourselves that we can understand it, which ultimately leads to more confidence and desire to learn. And so, while capital Pi might not live up to the image its younger sibling has created, it still serves its own very important purpose to those trying to learn math. Happy Pi Day.